So it seems to come up in every municipal election. Cavendish Boulevard, the extension, yes, it's going to happen. We're going to look into it. There'll be another study. Well, now there's another hurdle, not another study. And this time, though, it seems to be a bit of a self-inflicted wound. The city apparently had a reserve on a piece of land and then failed to remember that they didn't renew that reserve. And now it's belonging to a developer, and there's already a plan to build an industrial building on that site. Kind of unbelievable. Alan DESOUSA is the mayor of St. Laurent. He's on the line right now. Alan, thanks for being here this afternoon.
Thanks, Aaron. Thanks for having me on.
I want to make sure I understand this right. So the Kader administration took the reserve out. That goes back a couple of years. And then the city, opted not to take it or just completely forgot about the fact?
Well, they just let the reserve lapse. The Kader administration, recognizing that Cavendish had to push through the north, had identified a route and identified the land that would be needed for the route, and they put a reserve on those lands because they knew that they would have to acquire them. However, the new administration coming in chose to let those reserves lapse, and as a result of the lapsing of these reserves, there were really no limits, no restrictions for any development on that, and it would appear that there is a project to build a building right smack dab where the city has now come to the conclusion it needs to put a reserve. So I don't have to paint you the picture. It's a clash between a proposed development that ostensibly is being planned versus the city who says, hey, we need this land to extend Cavendish. And it would sound that the upshot of the deal is it's going to cost us money.
So it's an industrial building, and it's just waiting for the permits, right, in order for things to begin. But when you say they chose to let this reserve lapse, it sounds like perhaps it was deliberate.
Well, I want to give them the benefit of the doubt, Natasha. I would assume that the great poobahs at the city know exactly what they're doing, and they knew that this was the route that Cavendish had to take. We had advised them, and I'm talking as Mayor of St. Laurent, we had advised them that this reserve was critical to the extension of Cavendish. But despite all of our pleas and alerts, they still allowed it to lapse, saying that, they didn't really need this and they would come back to it later. At that time, it would appear that now they've had a change of heart and are now coming to the table 2 years later on exactly the same land. So it's a little bit curious that if I didn't know better, I would be generous and say it's Mickey Mouse. I wouldn't go as far as to say it's deliberate.
Okay. I mean, I was going to say who was asleep at the switch, but the way you're making it sound right now, maybe it's simply a matter of, they decided one thing then, decided one thing now, and didn't realize that they had to renew this 2-year hold, which by law, I understand in Quebec, you can keep doing ad infinitum, right? You could keep renewing that 2 years forever.
No, you can do it you can put a reserve for 2 years, and then you can renew that reserve for 2 years more. So you can put 4 years.
Okay.
At the end of 4 years, Aaron, you'd have to actually make a decision. Do you buy the land or you lift the reserve?
I see. Okay. Now, so what this ends up doing, essentially, Alan, is now the city, as you said, has gone ahead and realized that they needed to do what you're suggesting should have been done initially, or what had been decided initially in the last administration. Should they decide they want to do it, they would now have to go back to the developer, that's Olenbeck, and pay to get that land back, even though Olenbeck apparently already has a deal to develop. So it's going to cost a pile more dough just to get that back if they decide they want to, right?
You're absolutely right. The reserve, just prior to lapsing, would have been for bare land. No services, no plans, no building, no nothing. Today, if they were to go back, Olenbeck is on their website, a proposed building right exactly where the city wishes to put the reserve. Mm-hmm. So Olenbeck is likely going to be saying that, look, we are within getting a permit from town of Montreal to build, and I'm curious to know if the town will give them the permit, because clearly now a reserve has been put. But either way, they're going to argue that the land is worth more because they spent time to do architectural plans and seek out permits and so on and so forth. If this gets to be too expensive, and it could well get expensive, I think the city's got to wake up. The city has got to know, the city should know, what is the route, where is it, where do they have to place reserves, and if need be, where do they need to secure land? The city has already in February went and deposited plans at the Quebec environmental hearings, what they call the BAP hearings, So if they don't know by now where the route is, it's almost shameful to say they might never know.
I am thinking of your choice of language that you said, Mickey Mouse rather than deliberate. But, I mean, something seems really fishy here, does it not, Mayor? Because why would Ollenbeck even, proceed with plans knowing that potentially was going to be expropriated? And it's all sounding very fishy to me, no?
Well, I have to be careful in what I say,
I'm
and
sure
I don't
you
want to
do,
ascribe
yeah.
intentions to anyone. All I know is that if the city knew that they wanted the land, they should have
Yes.
concluded a deal. They were negotiating with Ollenbeck to do the deal, and at the last minute, they kind of dropped that deal. That being said, Ollenbeck, if there's no reserve on the land, Natasha, Ollenbeck as the owner has got all its rights and privileges to be able to do what they want with the land, as long as it conforms to zoning and all the rest of the stuff that a project has to conform to. And so there's nothing precluding Ollenbeck from going and planning for what they wish to do with their land. There's no limits on them. It's the city that should have been awake at the wheel to say that, hey, if we need this land, either we buy it or we freeze it or something, but we don't just let it go.
Right,
and that's
so
what's happened.
I have a question here. I'm not sure if this is a conspiracy theory or not. If the idea is that you extend Cavendish, it becomes kind of a highway north-south, right? And we all know the city does not want to favor that kind of development to begin with. Is that part of the reason, do you think, why this wasn't top of mind?
Well, it obviously didn't seem to be in the minds of the plant administration. I had flagged it to them. I mean, not just me. The mayors of Town of Montreal, the mayors of Côte-Saint-Luc, Côte-des-Neiges, and myself, we had all flagged it down. And we said, look, guys, we don't mind you improving the project. In fact, we have provided improvements to the project to put in bike paths and to put in trees and mass transit. It didn't come from the plant administration. It was the mayors of the 4 communities that put forth that suggestion. So we had no problem with improving, but what didn't fundamentally change, Aaron, was the path. That stayed the same. That was fixed. We all knew it. Everyone knew it. How you tweak it, how do you improve it, how do you embellish it, we were quite open to those suggestions, and any improvement has been welcomed. But that being said, let's forget the gift wrapping. Fundamentally, that path was there, and we know that the city should have reserved that path.
All right. So
I mean, now the alternative is to go around and find an alternative way if you don't want to pay the big bucks, and I just don't know what is the best choice, and that's why the city has to come by with a definitive plan that is not just a drawing on a map or on a piece of paper, but also with a real estate strategy to say that if this is our route, then let's put the reserves, let's snag the land, and let's make sure this goes through.
Alan, how long have you been the mayor out in Saint Laurent?
Well over 20 years. I think this project has been going on for over 50 years.
So I'm going to ask you one very simple question. You've been doing this for 20 years. The project's been lingering for 50 years. Honestly, is this, in your opinion, ever going to get done?
I have to be optimistic, Aaron. If I'm not optimistic, it'll be just too easy to bury this and move on to something else. But I think for our communities, the communities, and I'm not just talking about the 4 communities, Côte-Saint-Luc, Côte-des-Neiges, Saint Laurent, TMR, I'm talking for the broader Montreal picture. If we put on our hats as people who care for the broad island of Montreal, this project is probably the easiest one to do. It's a no-brainer, and therefore it has to get done.
Mm-hmm.
Alan DESOUSA, the mayor at Ville Saint Laurent, on the Cavendish project, the extension, the never extension. Perhaps we have to change the name of it. Alan, thanks so much. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Aaron. Thanks, Nasha.
Take good care.
Nasha,
thank you.
Have a good one.